What's up, lemon heads? Welcome back to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. I'm Emily.
And I'm Crystal.
And this week we're going to talk about creating raving fans from your brand.
Absolutely. We're going to really make sure that we talk about brand consistency, boring brands, and just downright poor planning that's costing you thousands of dollars a year, but how you can use your brand to really create some raving fans. It's time to sip some lemonade.
Let's do it. Alrighty, so I feel like we have to start off with what is an actual brand? Because let me tell you, it's not a logo.
Yeah, at least by itself.
Well, I mean, the logo can be the foundation of it, but in reality, the logo should be reflecting what your brand is, what the essence, the soul of your company is.
I treat it like a puzzle. Okay, because now listen, a very important perimeter piece, right? So most people, I don't know, regular people, I don't know, some of y'all are weird, but regular people put a puzzle together like using some perimeter pieces. So to me, like a good look and feel is definitely a major cornerstone for your brand, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you look like poo-poo, people are going to think that you're going to treat them like poo-poo. So we can't look that way. But yeah,
they probably don't legitimize your actual expertise or, the way your things are printed. Like if it's printed all janky, it's like, are these really like the most premier or the top of the line equipment, things like that. So all those little things kind of play into it.
Well, some of y'all charging caviar prices and y'all got Bush beer out there.
That's right.
So we gotta make sure that we're looking right. So, I think some of the things that actually make a brand is how you make the community that you are. That can mean your team, your potential customers, the market that you live in. I mean, all the ways that you can look at that. How do you make people feel when people experience your brand? And so that I do this really cool presentation that Emily helped me build out, but basically it's like this grayed out scale of the city, like picture of the city. It's like how many times do people interact with your brand, whether that's with your logo or just your logo scenes printed on something at a local Little League field or a mass media campaign where they're seeing it up on billboards or your trucks driving around. So if your trucks are driving around looking janky and everybody's got on dirty uniforms and smoking cigarettes and everything's dirty, then I would assume as the average consumer that that's what the brand is like. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have major protection over all things that consumers are experiencing.
Well, and like going back to that map that you're talking about, like the key point you're trying to make there is how am I memorable?
Yeah.
And so you've got to have a good brand that is disruptive, that's going to stand out. So it's not just a plain boring white truck that has some vinyl decal letters on it with your company name, the boring name, ABC Heating and Air Conditioning.
And so many people are like, oh my gosh, look how good I look. And I'm like, this is awesome. But your looking good doesn't always create a raving fan.
Correct.
So
that's just one aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's how you've made people feel. And so we keep reiterating this because we know this. We live this every day. We just need to help contractors understand that all of this goes together into making a brand. How do you make consumers in your market feel about who you are as a company? And so I thought some of the biggest mistakes that we could talk about here is like the whole. So when I was growing up, so like, I don't know, and I'm probably going to get the time wrong because I'm terrible at time. I will think there's a meme right now that says someone mentioned 20 years ago, and I thought, 1995, and it was actually like 2003.
I know.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so old. But so I may be off a little bit, but there was a show when I was a young adult, Fear Factor, and they made you eat like goat brains and all kinds of slalom ski while a snake eats your toes. I mean, like crazy, ridiculous stuff. But I was like, people are on here doing this ridiculous stuff. But basically, a lot of contractors have paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
They've overthought the crap out of a new brand. And they also just have straight up fear of what to do. Maybe you're a larger company and you're really scared of the financial impact of branding, or you're a small company that maybe you don't feel like you have the cash to really invest in a good brand. But some of the biggest mistakes that I see people making, and this is from my simple mind, is they're just boring.
Yeah. Or they're used to, there's other boring brands, so they think they have to fit the status quo. Like, well, this is what everyone else does. Like, that is one of my biggest pet peeves is like people showing me like, oh, well, here's what so-and-so, so I want to do something like that. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like,
yes. Or here's the sad thing to me. So I'm going to be real honest here. And this is going to, some of you that are listening, it's going to step on your toes. And I kind of want it to, but in a kind way.
I feel like every episode steps on people's toes.
I shouldn't say that.
That's what I think that's what people are here for.
Yeah, but it's very true. So I want you to take this with and make you think about things. You know, when you are trying to create a brand, and let's say it's your last name, there's nothing wrong with last names, okay? But you have to work extremely hard to be memorable and evoke emotion with your brand. So if I'm just called Williams Heating and Air, you see how you had no reaction to that? No reaction, right? And that's because the name alone doesn't stand by itself. And so you've got to have all these accoutrements.
Accoutrement. Is that a real word?
I don't know. It's a close word, but my Texas shows. But basically, like all these extra accessories.
Accompanying pieces.
Yes, I try to be fancy, but a couple of accessories there to make it better. So boring is really easy because it's safe.
For sure. And I think a lot of times contractors get so hung up on, well, what if so-and-so doesn't like it? Or what if so-and-so thinks this about my brand? Like, kind of trying to create this brand for the outliers. And I know you have feelings about doing anything for outliers.
Yes. No, we're not going to base all of our decisions on the 4 people that might get offended. And we also aren't going to run our life by committee.
Golly.
So I'm Baptist. Y'all know this. I talk about it on here all the time. So I'm like an old school Baptist, right? So like back in the day, we had committees. Our church was ran by committees. And then there was a committee on committees. And what we realized a couple of years ago is those committees tie your hands. Before you look up, you're having to go through 7 steps to be able to move forward with anything. And let me tell you, disruptive branding is not easy to accept.
Absolutely
And
not.
so people that have number one, anybody that's financially tied to your business is going to be scared to death to do it. So just go ahead and mark that as unsold.
They're going to be playing it safe.
Yes. And second of all, it's really hard to be like, yes, I am all in with this scary thing. So I don't even need you to be all in. I just need you to be bought in, if that makes sense. Like, I fully believe that we're going to give this a wholehearted effort, try, and we're going to win. And so a lot of it is just leading with confidence. So many of you contractors, you're scared, so your team is scared, so your investors are scared, whatever that looks like for you. But, you know, when your branding is disruptive, and so if you want to create raving fans about your company, they have to have this literal experience with your brand. And so stop being boring, stop being bland, which is... So right now I heard this. We were just recently at a show, and these people come up and they're like, I'm really not into those cheesy mascots. Okay. And it takes everything in my body to say, oh, okay, so you don't want to make any money. That's fine. But that's not always true. You don't have to have a mascot.
You don't, but...
I love them. But
and you love the cute ones.
I like the cute ones. I like anything with a freaking story.
Well, and that's ultimately what a character or some type of mascot or something can do. It can provide a story, building blocks, if you will, to help you really elevate this brand. And then also, like, you know, if you're going off of a last name or something like that, that's very tied to an individualized person. And so, like, as you're talking, what's a hot topic right now is like private equity and things like, well, what if that name or that person is going to be exiting out? Like, do you have to then rebrand then? Or,
yeah,
you know,
another thing is when dogs and then when they die.
So it probably needs to be based around a not real dog, you know?
Or be prepared that right now the dog is alive and well. But when the dog passes away, what do we do? I mean, these are legitimate conversations that go on in the living seat office.
For sure, yeah.
You know, or it's based around your grandfather who was around until last year when he passed away. So now you have to reshift the whole focus. But the point is you're telling a story. You're having an emotional connection with your community. And guys, it sounds so corny. You hear me say that a lot too. Like, it sounds like, this is a bunch of crap. I'm just going to call myself Williams Heating and Air and go on about my business.
Right.
Well, then you also are going to have a slower
launching,
yes,
like gaining some traction.
Yeah, you know, you want to be cool. You want people to want to be a part of who you're doing. And so you constantly have to be creating this customer experience through the first touch points all the way through the lingering touch points, and then just no imagination. So when you're creating your brand, anytime, I mean, we've gone through this. I watch Emily's team go through this literally weekly. We will put fantastic ideas up in front of contractors who are willing to rebrand. And I'm like, they're going to choose that. They're going to choose that. Oh my God, it's so good. And then they choose the safest one on the screen.
And I'm like, why do we even show them that one?
Yes.
But that was what they specifically requested. Like, hey, I'm going to show you just so you can
change
get it out
color.
of your mind. Yeah.
Don't change my colors. Don't change my font. Don't change my character. Don't change anything. But I want to refresh. And I'm like, okay, sir. So, like, this is like, you know what a junior high locker room smells like? Axe and body odor. You know why? Because they never take a shower to get cleaned up. They just mask it with Axe, like body spray.
Yeah,
so I'm like, it smells like armpit and tiger or whatever they've named their latest smell.
And that's ultimately what a lot of these people are doing with their brands.
Yeah, y'all just spraying some perfume on
but
it.
like at your core, you know, like
You
It's
smell like an
janky.
armpit. Y'all got an armpit brand. Well, and I feel bad because I'm like, somebody's grandpa in
Oh, I know.
1974.
I know.
And I'm like, we can save it. But really, what was working in 1974, you know what else wasn't active? Like communicating equipment, Wi-Fi,
the
thermostat.
internet, like-
yeah, I mean, so cell phones, right? So I get it. And it is powerful. And I would encourage you to like still tell that story when you relaunch your brand. So it's a lot. There's a lot to comprehend there. But as far as the raving fans things, like we've got to have some imagination so that when clients use you, it is a full body experience.
That's right.
From when I experience your brand driving down the road to the CSR that nails the call. So here's another thing. I dealt with a contractor last week while I was gone, but that was like, we're just not getting any calls. So I go and like 50% of their calls weren't being answered.
And you're like,
So I'm
excuse
like,
me.
okay, they're going to an answering service. And they're like, yeah, I use an answering service in the Philippines or in another country. And I'm like, okay. So literally reviews all on their page that were like, the answering service is in a foreign country. And like these people are in the South. And so the other issue that comes up is the South is not exactly an early adopter of things.
Correct.
So if they have to talk to someone that doesn't speak, and I'm going to say this because I can say this because I am one. They don't speak redneck. Like, hey, come on out here down 2497. We're about 6 miles out. There's a raccoon trap. Underneath it is the key to the gate, right? The poor person in the Philippines is like, what in the world is going on?
Well, and like some of our janky towns, like,
Yeah.
excuse me, how do you spell
Yeah,
that?
Nacogdoches,
yeah,
you know?
Dieball,
Yes. Excuse me.
dibble.
But what happens here is that is a part of your experience. So nobody is raving about that experience. And then I'm like, why is the answering service answering your call during the day? Oh, well, everybody takes a lunch from 12 to 1. I'm like, it is July and it is 137 degrees outside.
Stagger those
People's
lunches.
faces are melting off, and we're an air conditioning company, and you're like, everybody needs to go to lunch. I get it. I would stagger the lunches.
Or
because
bring lunch into the office.
yeah, you are affecting the customer experience.
Absolutely.
So again, are answering services needed? Yes. Are there some fantastic ones? 1,000%. But a lot of you are not considering you're only focused on one piece, and that is your employee focus. And I'm not here to bash that. I'm just saying there's got to be a healthy balance. So maybe half the team goes to lunch from 12 to 1 and the other half from 11 to 12. But somehow you've got to make it work to deal with the full customer journey. So they've experienced your brand just through environmental awareness like billboards and vans and things like that. They hear you on the radio. But another thing that they see is your personal Facebook pages. And some of you need soap, your mouth rinsed out with soap.
You are your own worst enemy.
Yes, or you are responding to reviews like a whole jagaloon. And you're
Just out to prove everyone wrong and everything that you did right and how the customer is just so stupid and, you know.
And listen, I have learned that the majority of the market, consumer wise, I think we are getting to where we are not taking all of these reviews at straight up face value. Right. Now we had to learn that as consumers. We had to learn that this 1-star review is probably an outlier. So I'm going to encourage you, do not live your life based on those outliers. Some people are never going to use your company. Some people are never going to support you. Some people are always going to hate on your brand and every decision that you make. Also, some of you are a bigger man in the group and you got a target on your back. So everybody's coming for you. Like, you're like, everything I do, they copy me. Good. That's the biggest form of flattery. Just make sure that you're doing it first.
That's right.
And you don't turn around and fight fire with fire. Like, don't fight stupidity with stupidity. They're going to beat you with experience, right? So just start
Crystal preaching here
doing
today.
something, So, okay, let's get beyond the logo.
Okay.
Beyond the look and feel.
Yeah, so there's numerous ways. We've already kind of touched on the overall customer experience and how do they talk, to your CSRs. What is it like when the technician actually comes to their home and stuff? But some actual ways are, like a tagline. A good tagline can help tie the whole thing in together, from your core vision and values to the look and why we have this mascot or something like that. A tagline is a fantastic way, a good brandable slice, if you will, to build up some of these things.
Well, and I talk to contractors every day that have a poor brand and no tagline.
Or
and
our family serving your family.
Our family serving your family, or some iteration of that. And it would be different if there was like a granddad or something that was a part of the brand. Nope, it's just a last name. And so what it is that no longer is a differentiator.
Sure.
No longer is family owned and operated. Now, let me say this. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. It kind of is coming back because of PE.
Sure.
So I had a contractor the other day, a large contractor in a metro market, say, I'm one of the only people still locally owned and operated. But then he went as far as to put it in the commercial. And so he said, we're the only non-private equity company. Remember, I need y'all to remember, consumers don't even understand what all that's even about. And it kind of makes you look, what do you call
tit for tat, like just throwing darts.
Yes. Yeah. Like a little immature to me, professionally immature. Like, don't tell me what other people do wrong. Tell me what you do right. So if you're in the middle of telling your brand, giving a TV commercial, and you start off with, we're the only one still locally owned and operated. That one piece at the beginning, if all you said is proudly locally owned and operated since 1974, that changes the whole.
For sure.
All of a sudden, you look a lot less argumentative. You look a lot less salty. That's you look salty.
I mean, and I'm thinking of 2 roofing companies here that we have in town that are on this billboard campaign, and they are both just like poo-pooing on each other, and it's like very immature to me, and like to me they both look bad. Like,
so if you've never talked to me about this, like I have this huge aversion to Facebook bullies. And so people that get on there and constantly tell us every single day of their life some way that people are idiots, or that they are the smart one, everybody else is an idiot. Like, I'm super passionate about, why are you on here bringing division? So it's like a word to my thermostat provider, like, I will never use you because you don't have good customer service. I'm like, they're probably like, thank God.
Yeah, no, they are.
Thank God we got rid of them. And, a lot of us feel like we're more important than we really are. And so I hate that. But like, a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I'll just put my foot down. Well, again, because I've dealt with so many contractors, listen, I got mansplained 2 or 3 times this weekend at a show where contractors, and those of you that know me that are listening, and maybe you don't know me, I try to really know what I'm talking about before I go on and talk about it. But people will start off with, now, honey, I'm a big company. I'm a large company. I move lots of boxes. So, in my mind, they're fixing to tell me they're $50 million.
Yeah.
They'll be like, we did $2 million last year.
And you're like,
and I want to say to them so badly, like, that is awesome, because $2 million is hard to get to, and it took a lot of work. But I also want to tell them, like, dude, you still have so much room to grow. Yep. And instead of like touting and like bowing your chest out, or girls like doing a little hair flip, like we're at 2 million. I just want to tell you, like, there's so much more for you to go.
That's right.
Like, don't start thinking that you've reached the apex of this mountain.
Well,
keep pushing.
And that kind of, I'm backtracking here a little bit, but sometimes when contractors are afraid to update their brand or do a branding, sometimes they think they're more important than they actually are. They think everybody knows me.
If we change it, it'll be terrible.
Oh yeah, or I've been around for so long, and my metro market is this. And it's like, actually, like, you have like you said, a whole long ways to go. Like, we'd be much better off starting over with a new name, completely new look and feel. But that's a hard pill to swallow.
It's scary. Oh, and again, y'all, I talk to contractors every day that have been in business 35 years that are doing $2 million, $1.5 million. Again, it took them a lot to get there.
Sure.
So I'm not poo-pooing on what success they've reached. But what I want to tell them is, sir, like, I've greenfielded a location and been doing $2 million in 18 months. Right, in a rural market.
You can't hang your hat on that.
Contractors, no. So I just want to encourage them, like, something needs to be zhuzhed up. No pun intended, but a little bit of a pun intended. Like, we need to juice this thing up, and we need to really push it. So, again, other ways that we can build out brand and Raving fans is through your maintenance club, and just creating what we want to do is create a community of people that have trusted your company already. So, a lot of us spend a lot of money, $300, $500, $600 for every new customer acquisition that we can get. So once you have them in your database, why are you not doing anything to keep them?
Yes.
And so maintenance plans are another way to reiterate your brand. So you got Grandpa Walter, you got Susu, the kangaroo, whatever you got, right? Whatever it is, we need to build that out for our clients to really engage in and invest in on a consistent basis, so that they never think of anyone else.
Well, and then that further indicates this Raving fan aspect, because they're like, oh, I know a guy. I've got a guy. You know, when they're on your plan.
Kangaroo man. I don't know why I chose kangaroo. I really just like random animals.
Susu the kangaroo.
Yes, I mean, you're welcome. You can steal it. Because, I'm on this kick right now. I want a goat, but no one wants to use a goat. It's fine. It's fine. I'll get off my soapbox. I'm going to open my own HVAC company do it something with a goat.
Call it the goat.
3 goats, heating and air conditioning, and name one for my brother and one for my sister.
Billy, Dilly, and Silly.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
Trey can be silly.
Yeah. That's his total personality, silly. But yeah, so, community support is another way. Like, this is why I'm passionate about mascots, okay? And I don't really care. I do care what the mascot is, but I want people to know we don't have to overthink this. And I'm going to say this carefully. The mascot doesn't have to be a part of your logo. Okay, it can be its own standing piece, but again, there's got to be a bridge. So we got to make a connection for people. But if we take our mascot and we put him out in the community, so we spent this last few days at one of the days at Epcot at Disney World, and we loved it. We were grown women, all of us 40 years old.
Except me. I am not 40 years old.
And neither is one of our other people. But, everybody was 40.
Half and half.
So we're walking around, but there is Minnie Mouse, and 2 of our team members hadn't been there. And no matter how old you are, you're like, oh, my gosh, that is so cute.
For sure.
It's so inviting. So what do? We stand in line for 15 minutes to take a picture with the Minnie Mouse
and give
the
her a
Daffy
hug,
Duck.
and
And we're all impressed with the fact they never broke character.
No.
And they needed to take a break. Like, Minnie needed to go sit down for a minute and get some Dr. Pepper. And they're like, Minnie's got to go take her pies out of the oven.
Yes.
And we were like, bye, Minnie, as grown women.
But
right?
what was so impressive to me is kind of sidetracking again a little bit here, sorry, but you said she never broke character, but she was exuding so much emotion and in her hand movements and the way
it was an experience.
It was completely an experience, but I knew exactly what she was saying, if you will, without her saying a word, and so, but I know Disney is super intentional to create what those hand movements are, what the way she walks, the way she gives hugs, things like that. And so where it is completely, you will never see a different Minnie acting a different way depending who was wearing that costume. Like, it will always be the same because they've gotten strict on that guy. And here's exactly the way to do it. That's where a brand can really come to life with that consistency.
Yeah, and it's like their mini brands. So like, you have the overall brand of Disney World and Disneyland, and then you've got these mini brands. So like, what does Minnie Mouse do? What does Daffy do?
What does Pluto do?
Yeah, and so we saw Joy, right? That was the character Joy from...
Yes, I couldn't tell you.
What is the name of that Disney movie? Huh? Inside Out. Good job, Rachel. Inside Out. Rachel's sitting in here, our director of our podcast, so Inside Out. But Joy, I was watching Joy, and so she is the most realistic looking character. But at the end, as you walked in to take a picture with her, as you walked out, she kind of followed behind you, like she was missing you, like, wait, come back. And then she put her hands over her mouth and she would come back. Every single time she walked to the edge of and I was watching that and I was like, this is some skill. This is some intentionality.
Well,
here.
and it's not like, hey, bye, now I'm on to the next one. Like,
Yes.
it was very much like, I care about you the whole way. Yes.
It was pressure. And the kids would turn around and engage. And so what that does, though, is that is an experience. And so all of a sudden, I love Joy. Neither me nor Emily could tell you the name of the movie, but all of a sudden we're Joy's biggest fans today with her blue wig looking cute. But we came out, and at first I was like, oh my gosh, her line was kind of short. And so we jumped in there to get a good picture. And then she was just very engaged with all of us. Again,
well, but again, the way she made us feel was what was so memorable. And so that's what we have to be looking for, is the way we make our customers feel, making them feel like they are the most valuable, the most important customer. They've spent the most money with us, whatever that might be, regardless if it's true or not. But you made them feel that way. You made them feel important.
Another client that I talked to this week, I was like, oh my gosh, you have such a good brand. The brand is based around his grandmother, and it's really good. And I was like, you really should get a mascot made. And I know that's kind of creepy pants, but everybody wants to hug abuela, right? Or their big mama or their grandma. So everybody, like, she had this really cool look. She has this really cool feel to her. And what it does is it just evokes so much emotion.
Sure.
So much emotion.
Connectable and relatability.
Yes, and you all of a sudden become like, oh, you can't be hating on the grandmother company. Okay? Like, they do everything. I would be serving fresh desserts at all types of festivals like my grandma did. And if she was famous for making tamales or making a certain kind of cookie, or maybe your grandmother, was famous for the way she sewed or something like that. All of that would be a part of my community experience, and engaging with our community, because when you support your community, he told me, he said, I'm really not into getting involved in the community yet. And I'm like, why is that secondary?
Sure.
Why is it like, well, I really don't want to. So I understand that it's time. So I listen, I talk to contractors who have literally, they have rubbed all the hair off the top of their head from worry. and they've got a lot of stuff on their plate. Emily and I have this, we took forks and spoons with us to our last little travel kits because we really had an understanding that we take marketing off the plate of the contractor, because all of these things that need to be done require so much time and so much intentionality, but it's a long-term payoff. And so if you want to create raving fans, you support things that matter to them. So if you're in a heavy pet area, you're supporting the Humane Society. You do, most of y'all are home service. You do a roof, you do draining, you do repiping, you do water heaters, you do HVAC equipment, you do PTAC, you do all these types of equipment. And why are you not supporting your local Habitat for Humanity? You don't have to give them 50 units a year. Take your team out there one Saturday and build with them. You will create raving fans just from participation, from giving them a $350 check.
Right.
Most of you can afford to do those things, but everybody wants to put that to the side. I'm going to put my brand to the side. I just want to go to straight calls to action. Well, then it's a very transactional relationship that you have with people. So there's no grace given. There's no understanding that you're going to be higher quality. There's no understanding of why I should give your team the benefit of the doubt, right? But if you've done all of this groundwork with your brand or with a mascot or with your character, with your look and feel and with their experience, all of a sudden people want to fight for you.
For sure.
They want to fight for you.
Well, and then also, like, when it comes to when you have a solid brand and you do get to those call to action pieces, your call to action will perform so much better because they already have experienced you. They already have some type of relation with you in some way. They saw you out at this baseball game. They saw you in this.
My kid took a picture with your mascot.
Sure. Or I'm on the board for the Humane Society.
Yes.
You guys came out and donated and built up this little thing for us. You know, like, those are the things that will make your call to action perform so much better because they've already been able to experience you in some way.
Engaged. They're engaged.
Yes.
They're engaged. Same thing with your employees. So a lot of you are like, how do we get new technicians? Well, my biggest question to you is, why is no one on your team bringing new people to your team? So, I mean, and same situation, like, why is your own team not sharing and engaging on your social media post? We had a meeting with Lemon Seed this morning. Our whole team has a once a week meeting. And I said, hey, make sure you're engaging with all of our social media posts. There are some that naturally get engagement, like happy anniversary or happy birthday or congratulations. But I'm talking like sharing a silly TikTok video that we've done. Those things take engagement with the brand. That was one of my biggest concerns about going hybrid. So half of our team in, half our team out of office, is how do we keep up the vibe, the interaction. I was reading a study the other day, and I can't remember who it was. So let me say it wasn't a study, okay? Because let me just claim it as my opinion because I can't back it up right now. But basically, what was happening is people were like, you know, what happened is COVID came in and they made work from home cool. It was cool to work from home, but also
and it could be done. A lot of things, I think people's like, there's no way we could do that, you know.
Yes, there are a lot of people, and all of a sudden people figured it out. But what I wanted to say is also we've seen a rise in mental health, in loneliness, sadness, and things like that. And I think it's because we are craving human interaction. So even those of us that have like maybe anxiety, like we don't like being in a loud environment, things like that, I think we have isolated ourselves. And if you really, this is a little
deep,
we
think we don't like that human interaction, or like, I'm much better just being at home or by myself or on my phone, but you don't even realize what you're missing out, and like, that's truly that loneliness piece that you're missing.
Yes. Well, and then what happens is then you get around a bunch of people and you're like, holy crap balls, this is terrible. But you know, and I can say this, we'll travel for 7 days, 5 days, 8 days. And when I come back home, even though my kids are 13 and 16 at the time, I still have to reacclimate myself to all the questions and all the money that needs to be had. I need gas. Can you get this? Can you sign this form? I need lunch money. I need a hoodie. I need football gloves. And at first I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all are so needy, you know. But then I have to reacclimate myself to being back home and dealing with my children, getting to deal with my children, because they're a blessing. But at the same time, I just spent 7 days like talking about Lemon Seed, and, you know, travel reservations and flights and all of that. I have to reacclimate myself. And so it's the same thing if you relate this to a brand. A lot of you have isolated your brand. You kept it in-house whole time. You ain't told anybody other than a kidnapper-looking van riding around town, right? And then now, all of a sudden, you go out in the community and you're like, oh my gosh, this was expensive. This was draining. I can't do it. I don't have time. And so you hunker back down. And right now, people are so hungry for the engagement. Buy a prize wheel off of Amazon and spin it and let people win crap. They
An
don't even
ice
care.
cream scoop, a
They don't
pizza
even
cutter,
care.
yeah.
You know, and what it is you want to create this engagement that all of a sudden people don't know any different but to choose you. And they will rave about you because they want a pizza slicer. Because no matter how you slice it, Williams Air is the best company to use, right?
you go.
We had those forks and spoons at our booth this last week, and people were like, "Oh, what is this?" And we were like, "Oh, it's a little travel cutlery set." And we would say it kind of fun. We would say, because we take marketing off your plate, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's genius!" And we're like, "Thank you." But what it was is we just don't mind being a little silly. Our brand is not really silly, but our brand is very
friendly and approachable.
yes, and we like to make those little corny tie-ins because it's memorable. People were sending other people over to our booth and said, "We heard y'all take marketing off of people's plates, and we can get a fork and spoon set." You can, and you know how much it cost me? $2. $1.80 per person. I don't know. Those things might have cost me $5.
No, they really weren't, you know.
Not that expensive.
And that's what I think sometimes people can get in their own head is like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so expensive. I'm going to spend $1 million on all this swag for people to just come up and take it. And that happened at our booth. Like, hey, I'm just here to, y'all have the best swag. Can I take some stuff?
Yeah.
It's going to happen,
Sure.
okay? But it's all building up to your brand, and like you got to take a little bit of the bad to get with a lot of the good, you know.
Yes. Again, y'all living out there with the outliers.
Yes.
And you can't. You just cannot live with that. You know, I had a guy come up to me the other day, and he was like, "I don't like running those silly offers. Like, I'm not running an 83 or it's free drain clearing. I ain't doing it. That's silly." And I'm like, "Okay, so just tell me why. I like to understand why you don't like to run those. We can run traditional offers, but why not this one?" He's like, "Well, sure enough, somebody's going to call me." And I'm like, "Oh, and then you'd have a mainline repair?" And he was like, "Well, I mean, but I feel like I trick people." Okay, so are you cleaning the drain? Yes. If you can't clear it, do you still charge them $83? No. Okay, so you don't charge people for work you can't fix, right? But what's going to happen? One person might call you a cheater. He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Stop worrying about that one person." Number one, I think people live to be that one person, so we got to ignore those haters. Let them be your motivators. But you know, you just have to get past some of that stuff. So, last thing is, so let's talk about the look and feel. So, to create raving fans, what we really have to do, again, and we've said it a million times, is there's got to be some sense of high quality and engaging. So, we have seen some really good business cards. Popples, like digital business cards. So if I have a brand that is high end, and I like to be high end, do I have the cheapest business cards? Probably not.
That you printed yourself. It doesn't even have a bleed, like you see a white edge on the edge of the
You
paper.
went to Office Depot and you printed those on your Canon in your office, and then your secretary had to fold off the edges. That's not it, right? Because we met a recruiter there that was recruiting for the trades, and he gave me a business card, and I was like, "Oh." Immediately, I thought, this guy's high end. Because his business card, felt like a wet seal. What do you call it? It was rubbery kind of
Yeah,
feeling.
it had like a matte finish, but he had some spot UV to where like certain spots of it would be like glossy, but the background was matte. and
it
stuff.
was super cool.
But I already thought that guy was so much more legit. And
He also
knew
had
what
on
he
a
was,
suit jacket.
I knew what he was talking about. He knew what he was talking about. Like, I had that confidence in him because of the way he presented himself. He presented his business card, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
So here's some ways to have a raving fans, okay? So I'm just going to throw some ideas out there to you guys. So raving fans is you go out to a home, you realize you have a dog, and you have dog treats on your van. That's not new. People have been doing that, but it's an easy thing. Also, does it hurt you to have collapsible dog bowls? So when you walk up to the home and you're like, "Oh my gosh, you got a little chihuahua that's nipping at my heels. I got something in the car." And you go bring that homeowner a little collapsible dog bowl that cost your company $2. So yes, your technicians cannot be jagaloons. They've got to keep them nice and neat in their truck. But it does, all of a sudden, they've created a fan, right? You notice that same pet dies later on. All of a sudden, you just realize, like when they call in for their tune-up and you say, "Okay, and you still have your dog, we need to check the dog, blah, blah." "Oh no, little Susu passed away." "Oh no, when did that happen?" Yeah, the pet kangaroo passed away. "Oh no, how did that happen? We're so sorry to hear that." And then you send a little simple something around that, right? Or you notice that one of your longtime customers passes away, and it says, in lieu of flowers, you know, Mr. So-and-so would like to make a contribution to the library. You make a contribution to the library and send them a handwritten note that says, yes, are those things hard to scale? 100% they're hard to scale. but you can create some processes that make those intentional connections, because then they're going to say, can y'all believe my heating and air conditioning company sent me a flowers, a card, a gift card, whatever. So those are some ways to make.
Again, you're making them feel like the most important customer that they've ever had, you know?
Yeah. Another thing is like going where the people are. So like right now, like even I work where I'm on meetings a lot of times. So I probably have on average 5 to 6 meetings a day at Lemon Seed. So you know what's really hard? It's really hard for me to call and make Carter's dentist appointments or Little Ray's eye appointments. And Little Ray got my oldest son, he got rear-ended on the way to a football game the other day. So now I've got to call the other people's insurance. I don't have time to do those things. You know what I want to be able to do? Chat on your website. So I don't need to talk. I would love to talk to you.
Sure.
But my day, you're not open before 8 or after 5. So that's one thing. So I have to, but you don't have chat because by God, everybody wants to talk to us. No, they don't.
Sure, I'm managing 5 other things while I'm also trying to get this thing scheduled. You know,
so I love it. You know what I don't mind is a call the day before. Hi, Miss Williams, this is so-and-so. We see that Carter has an appointment tomorrow. That's great. And honestly, if I was a lot older, I would probably want to be able to call and talk to someone.
But you've got to have the options to have both.
Yes, why can't you? It's not, don't make things so difficult, because you want to be able to, I was able to call and, make an appointment online. My sweet executive assistant, she was helping us the other day, and I was like, I'm so sorry, can you help me make a nail appointment? Because I've tried to call, can't get through. She was like, sure. So she makes it online, and I come out and I'm like, they're going to call and reschedule that because their online appointment booker is terrible. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll call them. So sure enough, 2 minutes later, they're like, your appointment's unavailable. I'm like, the one I just booked online? That showed me you had availability, sir? Like, this is ridiculous. So honestly, my experience with that brand has been that it's a show. So now people like me, like I will change companies over stuff like that because I don't want to make an appointment, get it on my calendar, schedule it around my calls for you to call me, a little bit later and be like, sorry, that was a lie. We lied to you. That really isn't available. And so those are some ways to make some raving fans, but also your technicians, guys, this is not rocket science. Not parking in the driveway and dripping oil. Knocking on their door, or instead of just beating on the door, we ring a doorbell, we take 2 steps back. We're dressed nicely. If they see something has fallen, they go outside and they go around the condenser that's covered with leaves. Can we move those off of there?
Sure.
Just little extra things.
Well, and, I remember when we had to get a new system installed, like he had a broom on his truck just to sweep off the little extra dirt that he didn't even cause, but he got in our garage and just swept out, and it's those little bitty things.
Little extra pieces are really where it's at. And same thing goes with like giving things out of a giving spirit. So you got a little character, you got little stickers, things are so inexpensive, but a lot of you won't do it because you just won't spend the time to do it.
Yeah.
I said that in one of my presentations at a conference this past week. It's like, there is 200 people in this room, and 175 of you are not going to take any action, and then 20 of you are going to kind of mess around with making an action for 2 years. Only 5 of you are actually going to do anything with this information. And the truth of the matter is we have paralysis by analysis. So the moral of today's topic is to stop being boring.
That's right. Don't be scared to take a risk, to do something different. If you think about how you even started this business, it was probably something scary. And there's probably some people telling you not to do it, not to quit your day job, what's going to happen to your family. But you had to be a little bit risky and to even get that off the ground. And so I would just encourage you to do that with your brand as well, to do something disruptive, to do something memorable. And when you can have that solid brand, that is your foundation to create raving fans.
Absolutely. And Lemon Seed Marketing is definitely here to help you with this. So we go far beyond the logo. We have an exceptionally talented group of designers on our team that can certainly help get a new look and feel for you. But we specialize in that, along with going deeper into the brand. And so helping you expand that brand and to really have a branding plan for your market. And so Lemon Seed is a full service marketing agency that really helps you organize all of your budget, really get a plan for how you're going to go to market and how you're going to dominate that market and how you can hold your vendor partners accountable. Thank you for listening to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. If you've enjoyed this, we really would appreciate sharing on our social channels, and also leaving us a review would be really good.
That helps our podcast to continue and to share the information and things that we're passionate about that could help you.
Yeah, thanks for listening and sipping some branding lemonade today. We hope you have a good day.
See you next time.